Today on the channel, I'll be talking about how Google tricks you into activating various ad features. Hey, I'm Ed Goss from 10,000 Foot View, and I've got another Google Ads quick tip for you today. Just before I jump in, a reminder to please like our content and subscribe to the channel. We post about Google Ads at least once every week. Okay, so today, as I mentioned, I'm going to be talking about some tricks that Google uses to get you to activate ad features that may or may not benefit your account, but certainly will benefit Google. These are based on an article I wrote a while back, so I'll be basically scrolling through the article and talking about the main points. I will also link the article in the comments section, so you can go and have a look at everything in depth. Okay, so the first thing is default settings, and that is basically when you create a new campaign or an ad group, Google will activate certain features by default, and those aren't always the best options based on your business goals. So the most classic example of this is the search or the networks that Google will use in search ads. And so most advertisers, when they create a search campaign, they're really only interested in targeting search inventory, right? So when people search, your ad comes up. But by default, Google will check this box that says include Google search partners. And because this is kind of inclusive, this heading of search network here, this is a little bit deceiving because it looks like you're only selecting search network, but this is actually another feature. And if you deactivate this, you'll still be targeting the search network. You'll just be excluding Google search partners. And just for clarification, Google search partners is basically third-party websites that will run ads based on keywords that kind of match the content. So it's really not search marketing at all. It's more display ads. And then the other thing, of course, they recommend is for you to run on the display network. Now, this will not be checked by default, but Google does want you to check this box, and I would say stay away from that. If you do want to run display ads, really you should be running those in a separate campaign. You'll have much greater control over the budget, the creative, the targeting, and all that stuff. Okay, so that's the first thing, and this is just one example of default settings. There are many others. The second one is hidden settings, and this is essentially where Google buries a feature that makes it very difficult to turn it off. And so a great example of this is automated extensions, or now called automated assets. So these are things like site links that Google will generate automatically on the fly. And oftentimes they'll point to a page on your website that has like 0% chance of converting. So often you want to turn off, I'd say site link assets, like almost always you want to turn that feature off. But other things like call outs and that, oftentimes what Google generates is just not good. But to get there to turn it off requires a lot of steps. You can see there's 12 steps here. It's a lot of clicking to get through to actually get to that feature set. And you can't, even when you get there, you can't turn them all off at once. You have to turn off one asset type at a time. And that kind of almost leads into the next one, which is work intensive settings, because in that case, you had to do a lot of work to go through and independently turn off each one of those assets. So work intensive settings, really you have to do a lot of steps, again, kind of like above, to deactivate those features. And one good example of that is excluding all app categories. So in your Google Ads account, if you don't want to advertise on apps, so mobile apps, you can disable all the app categories, but there's like 150 of them. There may be even more since the last time I checked. And you have to go through one by one and check each one. There's no like top level select all. There is a workaround. You can do an editor, but if you don't use Google Ads Editor, you're basically going to have to go through and check them one by one. So it is like a 5-minute task to go through and do this. And Google could very easily make it a lot easier, but they decided not to do that because they want to make it difficult so that you don't do it. The next one is targeting options that you cannot change online. Um, and so up until maybe about 6, 8 months ago, Google didn't have an interface in Performance Max to add negative keywords or exclude topics or placements. For a long time, they didn't have any way to do it. But for then about a 1 year period, you could email your rep and ask them to do it, or eventually you could go online to a certain web page if you could find it, and you could upload a spreadsheet template indicating what keywords and what placements you wanted to exclude, and then support would take care of that for you, typically within 24 hours. So it was a real rigmarole. And the other thing is, unless you kept very clear, careful documentation of what you'd sent in, there's no record of what actually got applied to your account. So you may have a bunch of negatives in assigned to a PMAX campaign, and you've kind of lost track of what those are. So yeah, just not a great way to do business. The next one is completion bias. And basically, what this is they almost gamify turning on features. So they'll use, like, in their recommendations feature, and things like ad strength scores, they will kind of say, like, oh, well, if you do this, you'll get a better score. And, so you should do it. And people normally would assume, well, if I'm at 50% in my recommendation score and I apply this, I get to 80%, that means my campaigns are going to perform better. But absolutely doesn't mean that. It's just Google's suggestion to get a better score, which, I mean, sometimes it's better, but sometimes it's not better. So you kind of have to use your own judgment. All right, the next one is scary status notices. And this is basically where, you'll see in campaigns like a big red notice limited by budget that makes it sound like something's broken in your campaign. But really, it's just Google saying, hey, you could be spending more money here. So, there's no reason for it to be like such a flamboyant status that limited by budget, because you've set the budget where you want it. If you want it to spend more money, you would increase the budget. Um, so again, it's just a way to get you to spend more money. All right, bad recommendations. So I talked about, the gamification to get you to increase your score. But basically, Google just will go through and make a whole bunch of recommendations to turn on features. And often those features will basically make your campaign spend more money, right? So that could be lowering your target ROAS to get a campaign to spend more, adding a whole bunch of keywords that are not necessarily relevant for what you offer, and a whole bunch of other things like that. To add insult to injury, as I said here, they even have an auto apply feature you can turn on, so that you won't even be able to review those recommendations. Google just apply them to your account. Automatically generated creative. That one's pretty clear. Once you turn on, and there's a lot of places to turn on automatically generated creative. Once you turn it on, Google will start generating additional ads, headlines, descriptions, assets. They can even generate, like in Performance Max, they can generate like completely novel creative on the fly. And typically that creative is not very good in my experience at my agency. I'd say like maybe 10% of it is quite good. 50% of it is okay, and the rest can be pretty bad. We've even seen like creative that's very negative about a product offered by the advertiser. And the main, goal of Google there is to essentially get ads served more often by including more headlines and descriptions that match up with your keywords. So just again, you're going to be in the auctions more, you're going to spend more money. And then kind of lastly, Google reps and their mandate, and that is that Google reps will constantly push the features, new features that Google wants to push out. And oftentimes activating those features will make your account spend more money. and often there's little regard to what actually is going to improve your business goals. So you can see there's a lot of stuff that Google does. Whether you want to call it shady or not, I don't know. There are a lot of things they do to try to get you to spend more money by utilizing features that are not necessarily the best feature set to serve your own business goals. Anyway, that is it for today. I hope you found this video useful, and we'll tune in again. I will see you next time.